Guys, so I've been thinking about UFC 300 the last couple of days because we finally have an announcement for the main event. Obviously, that's going to be Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill. And I absolutely love this matchup. I mean, I told you guys that I truly, truly do love this fight. However, I understand that many fans are currently not happy with the card, with the main event, with the way Dana White has managed UFC 300, the way he's announced things, the way he's kind of hyped up some fights, and we truly never got them. A couple weeks ago, when he was announcing the Yang Wei Li versus Yang Yaonan fight, he was saying that, oh, we're gonna announce two more title fights tomorrow, and it never came. You know what I'm saying? It never came. We were all assuming that he was going to announce Bilal Muhammad versus Leon Edwards, and maybe that fight still ends up being on UFC 300. But, a lot of fans are disappointed. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of in the middle. I do agree with the fans in the sense that I think Dana White did a terrible job of one, planning for the card, because I don't understand how you build UFC 300 without first trying to have that big main event locked. Like, that should have been the first fight that you focus on. And this should have been something that they were planning last year when they thought about the early cards for 2024. So it seems like they really didn't plan for UFC 300. Maybe they thought that everybody was going to be ready, or the people that they wanted for that main event were going to be ready. So I don't understand how the UFC ends up in a position where they're desperate for a main event for UFC 300. Like, that should have been the first fight they announced. It should have been the first fight that they lock in. So in that sense, I completely agree with the fans that the UFC has not done a good job of planning for the card, and the way Dana White has hyped up the main event, and it turns out it's just a regular light heavyweight bout. It's gonna, it's not really gonna hype up the fans. But myself, like, now let me talk about what I think. I think Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill is an amazing main event. I absolutely love this fight. I love it. I think there's so much at stake. I think it's a very fun stylistic fight. Jamal Hill is primarily a striker. Alex Pereira is a kickboxer. So this fight is most likely going to take place on the feet. There's a lot at stake. Jamal Hill's coming off an injury, former champion, hasn't really lost his belt, has never really been knocked out. His only losses to Paul Craig. Alex Pereira, you know, the guy has accomplished things that most fighters would dream of, especially with the amount of fights he has in his career. Alex Pereira is also a fan favorite right now. I mean, everybody loves this guy. I mean, how can you not love Alex Pereira? So I love this main event. I think that, like I said, I agree with the fans that the UFC has done a bad job of managing this. The fact that they announced the main event for 300 after UFC 298 and it just kind of got lost under the radar, that just shows you that the UFC wasn't really happy with this main event. And if I'm being honest, guys, I prefer this main event than Israel Adesanya versus DDP because, you know, I think Israel Adesanya's fights are boring. DDP just had a war against Sean Strickland. He did take a lot of damage against Sean Strickland, and I didn't want to see DDP just make a quick turnaround just because the UFC wanted to give an advantage to Israel Adesanya. So I love this fight. Like I said, I'm still concerned with Jamal Hill. I'm worried that he's not going into this fight with the most preparation. But I just remember yesterday that Jamal Hill, he did fight Glover Teixeira like in a month and a half notice. So this isn't the first time for Jamal Hill. The thing is, he is coming off a pretty bad Achilles injury, but I think he should be fine, man. And I think he should be fine, especially since this fight is most likely going to take place on the feet. He doesn't have to worry about the grappling, but he really just has to worry about the leg kicks and the calf kicks. And I've seen Jamal Hill fight. I was watching his fights recently, and I think he's very slick on the feet, good boxing, very fast, maybe one of the fastest guys that Alex Pereira has ever faced. So I think Jamal has a pretty good shot. Now, back to UFC 300. I'm actually changing my tune when it comes to this card. I think the card is great. I mean, Alex Pereira, Jamal Hill, Justin Gaethje, Holloway, to have him on one card, Charles Oliveira versus Alexander Rakic. Now, I still do feel that there's something missing with UFC 300. And I've been thinking about a matchup that they could add for UFC 300 that personally would satisfy me. And I think it would kind of make the card feel a little bit more, I guess, complete. I would love if they would add Cyril Gane versus Sergey Pavlovich. I feel like it's missing one of the big boys. I feel like if they add Sergey Pavlovich versus Cyril Gane as like a fight on maybe the prelims, maybe the main event of the prelims, that would be amazing. Now, the one thing that feels odd about this card, I feel like Yang Wei Li versus Yang Jianan does not belong on this card. And nothing against Yang Wei Li, like I said, I think she's one of the most exciting female fighters we have right now. I love Yang Wei Li, but this fight feels very out of place. And I feel like if I was a UFC, I mean, right now they don't have a lot of time, but I would try to move Yang Wei Li versus Yang Jianan to Brazil, and I would move, or they could move it to UFC 299, but it might be too soon. I think Yang Wei Li versus Yang Jianan would be a good co-main event for UFC 299. Yes, UFC 299 will take a hit, but like, man, look at that card. It's absolutely stacked. And I feel like if you add Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis to UFC 300, I feel like it fits more of the vibe of 300 than it does UFC 299. Like Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis is an amazing fight for 300. You add that fight. I don't care if it's 5 rounds. I don't really care. Do you guys care? I'm pretty sure the fans don't give a fuck. They don't care if Charles Oliveira's 5 rounds. I mean, as a fan, if all these fights are 5 rounds, I'll be happy as hell. So I don't think anybody would really complain about that. But imagine Alex Pereira, Jamal Hill, Justin Gaethje, Holloway, Charles Oliveira, Armin Tsarukyan, Dustin Poirier, Benoit Saint Denis, and am I missing someone? Yuri Prochazka, Alexander Rakic. Like, I feel like having Dustin, Gaethje, Holloway, Charles, Yuri all in one card would be absolutely amazing. So in my opinion, I feel like Dustin Poirier versus Benoit feels more appropriate on 300. I do know that Dustin Poirier did say that, they wanted to make that fight for 300, but he wanted a 5 rounds and the whole pay-per-view stuff. So I completely understand why he's on UFC 299. Not to be ungrateful. I mean, UFC 299 is looking absolutely incredible. I just think it would fit more on 300 instead of like having all these fun matchups, and then you have Yang Wei Li versus Yang Jianan, which is a very proper title fight. It just feels out of place, in my opinion. Feels out of place. Or I also think that this could have been a good co-main event. Think about this. I get it. Cyril Gane does not deserve another title shot, but the heavyweight division is in a weird place. We don't really have a number 1 contender. Jolton Almeida versus Curtis Blades is happening at 299. John Jones is out. Stipe Miocic doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. So what I would have done, I would have made Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill the main event. Co-main event, Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane for the interim belt. But tell me that's not a fantastic fight. That would be an amazing card. Like, you would not be complaining about that card. And you remove the Yang Wei Li versus Yang Jianan fight out of there, and it would be perfect. I just think that the Yang Wei Li fight versus Yang Jianan fight, it just feels out of place. I don't know. Like, when I look at the card, like I said, the card is amazing. One of the best cards we've ever gotten. Maybe it's not enough for you guys. I completely understand why. But move Yang Wei Li versus Yang Jianan out of 300. Maybe make Aspinall versus Cyril Gane. Maybe it's too late now. Or, like I said, move Dustin versus Benoit to the co-main, not the co-main event. I would just move Gaethje, Holloway up. But move Dustin versus Benoit, to 300. I just think it fits better. I just think the Yang Wei Li versus Yang Jianan fight just feels really out of place. And that's my only complaint. Like I said, I've been kind of changing my tune on 300. I understand. I really do believe that the UFC was trying its best. Like, I honestly do believe that. I just think that the timing didn't work out. It also sucks with Ramadan and the Muslim fighters because, in my personal opinion, guys, I wish Islam was in this card. I wish Islam Makhachev was on this card. Islam versus Leon Edwards. That's a super fight, man. I want to see that. And I feel like Ramadan took this away from us. I mean, I respect their religion, but I feel like it was just a timing issue. It was really a timing issue. Conor McGregor, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I hope we get some clarity. So Conor McGregor was out. It's also very unfortunate that John Jones had an injury because John Jones versus Tom Aspinall would have been a great UFC 300. So even though, like, in the grand scheme of things, I understand why people are disappointed with UFC 300. But if you think about the now, and what was available, I think Pereira versus Jamal Hill is fantastic. I just think that the card still needs something more. Just like maybe like I said, Cyril Gane versus either Sergey Pavlovich or Tom Aspinall, I think would fit great on this card because it's missing some of the big boys. I would love it. And let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that the card is still missing something? Do you believe, do you agree with me that if we add Cyril Gane versus Sergey Pavlovich or versus Tom Aspinall as a co-main? And do you also agree that the Yang Wei Li fight, look, I love Yang Wei Li, but this fight kind of feels out of place. I wish they would have made that fight for UFC 299 or even UFC 301. I get it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for Yang Wei Li and Yang Yanan to fight in Brazil. But in my opinion, I think it would have made more sense for Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill to fight in Brazil. So we don't know what the UFC is necessarily doing. I just think that with UFC 300, they should have stuck to a theme. And Gaethje Holloway fits that. Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill fits that. Charles Oliveira versus Armin Tsarukyan fits that. Yuri Prohaska, maybe not against Alexander Rakic, but I mean, Yuri Prohaska is never in a boring fight. But I just think they should have, I think they should move Yang Wei Li out of there, in my opinion. Move it to another card and then add, I would love it for it to be Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane or maybe Cyril Gane versus Sergey Pavlovich. I think those two fights would be amazing. Or like I said, add Dustin to 300. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.